This is CBC Vancouver News.
Tonight on CBC Vancouver News, the outlook not so great for Canada's economy. Ottawa's plan to steer the affordability ship back on course.
Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of new homes.
Will it work?
They recognize the scale of this problem is enormous. It's historic.
The BC government has some concerns.
People are struggling for housing right now, and we need those dollars right now.
For recent buyers preparing to renew their mortgages, higher interest rates mean heftier monthly payments.
I'm the sole income earner in my family, so that definitely puts some stress.
Oh, and don't forget about inflation, how people are making ends meet.
We're spending a lot of money on eating out, so we've decided to cut back on that.
We explore all the layers, digging many into an affordability hole they don't know how they're going to climb out of. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Dan is away tonight. We begin with major breaking news out of the Middle East. There is word this hour that a deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas for a temporary pause in fighting to free dozens of hostages held by Hamas in exchange for the release of Palestinians in Israeli prisons. This agreement comes after relentless pressure inside Israel by family members of those hostages who've been held captive for more than 6 weeks. Now 50 of them are expected to be freed in the coming days, all of them women and children. But when it comes to the conflict, Israel's prime minister remains unwavered, saying this war is not over. CBC will bring you the latest on this developing story tonight on The National. Well, back in this country, the feds have unveiled their latest blueprint for the Canadian economy. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland delivered the fall economic statement in the House of Commons today. The government is attempting quite the fiscal juggling act, trying to balance programs to build more homes, make life more affordable, and bring down inflation. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian begins our coverage from Ottawa.
Chrystia Freeland is trying to tackle affordability issues while keeping an eye on the bottom line. Beneath that tightrope, a worsening economy ahead.
Our economic plan is focused on building an economy that works for everyone, with good jobs that people can count on.
The new spending outlined today is modest, $21 billion over 6 years, most of it aimed at housing and previously announced programs such as heat pumps and the removal of the GST for rental construction units. It is a sign the government doesn't want to add to the inflationary fire.
I am today announcing new measures through our economic plan to build thousands upon thousands upon thousands of new homes across the country.
There is a $15 billion loan program starting in 2025 to kickstart construction of new rental housing units. And the government also intends to cut down on red tape, allowing construction workers to move across the country more easily to build these new homes.
They recognize the scale of this problem is enormous. It's historic.
But for this observer of the economy, these are measures that will barely start addressing the housing shortage in the country.
This is not something that's going to get solved in this fiscal update or even in the next budget. We'll be talking about this in the next election and probably the next election after that.
An issue for the official opposition for months, engaging again today as the ink was still drying on the economic statement.
It now takes 25 years to save up for a down payment in Toronto. You used to pay off a mortgage in that time. Since this Prime Minister has taken office, families have stretched out the terms of their mortgages to 90 years.
Affordability is likely to be on Canadians' minds next time they're at the ballot box as they weigh how well the government has balanced spending with restraint in the middle of global uncertainty. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
So what does the BC government think? Well, the province is pleased overall with the new measures, but the housing minister says he's disappointed with the timeline on seeing this funding materialize.
I'm a little concerned that the money is out to 2025 and 2026. People are struggling for housing right now, and we need those dollars right now. And, a little concerned that they've booked the money for so late, given the challenges we're dealing with right now.
Some housing advocates are echoing that frustration over just how long it'll take for that much-needed money to get out the door. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe continues our coverage with a closer look at that angle.
Early in the day, organizers at this Vancouver conference for nonprofit housing were optimistic about what the government would announce.
It's very, very welcome news. It's something we've been advocating for. We've got hundreds of shovel-ready projects where the zoning is in place, permitting is in place. What they're lacking is the finance.
But then came the details, specifically that $15 billion in loan funding for rental housing would not be available until 2025-2026. Same timeline for the $1 billion for purpose-built community housing. The CEO of the BC Nonprofit Housing Association called me back to make sure I knew how disappointed she was. A sentiment echoed by the provincial housing minister.
I'm a little concerned that the money is out to 2025 and 2026. People are struggling for housing right now, and we need those dollars right now.
The problem is when interest rates went up, some rental housing projects were stalled or shelved. The cash promised today likely won't mean move-in ready homes until at least 2030, says the BC Nonprofit Housing Association. And there's no guarantee builders will take the government up on its offer.
So you can provide low-cost loans, but if the private sector looks at market conditions or is looking at the economics of their projects and it still doesn't work, even with low-cost loans, they're not going to build.
This researcher is glad to hear the government talk about housing, but
we don't think that the gravity of the housing crisis is reflected in the announcements that were made today.
And the thing about waiting so long for cash to start flowing is a lot can change in a couple of years, including governments. Long-term promises may not survive an election. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Canada's new housing policies come at a time recent buyers are preparing to renew their mortgages. Higher interest rates mean heftier monthly payments for many who are already stretched very thin. John Hernandez is hearing mounting anxieties from some homeowners heading into the new year.
Bikramdeep Singh knows there's some tough times ahead.
Probably have to cut down on going out for dinners or taking out every now and then with family.
He bought his new Westminster townhome in 2019 when interest rates were lower, but he's up for mortgage renewal next year and facing a much higher rate.
So that's going to be bringing my payments 30 to 40% up. So that's going to be a significant chunk of money that I'll be spending every month. So that is going to affect definitely my lifestyle. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments.
I think part of me is just wanting to not really have to think about it until crunch time, only because it's rather daunting.
Perhaps an even bigger struggle for Kevin Larkin. His mortgage for his Surrey condo is up for renewal come January.
You know, I've just been running the numbers, and I don't see how I'm going to be able to renew and afford this. And it's unfortunate because I'm a professional. I work. I'm trying to support a family.
Some brokers say it's likely to be a tough year ahead, with interest rates expected to hold firm for at least the first half of the year.
There's going to be a lot of individuals who will feel this pain. Unfortunately, foreclosures are something that we don't like to talk about. We don't want to see, but a lot of people are struggling.
But there is some relief for Canadians. Ottawa announced the removal of the 2% mortgage stress test for renewals.
They're almost going to qualify at close to a similar rate that they may have already qualified in the past because that stress test, that 2% is not there. So that's going to save a lot of people.
Other supports include extended amortization periods and waived fees for delayed payments.
Is it going to have an effect for my particular situation? I don't know. But again, any kind of sign is a good sign.
I would hope that it will be accompanied by cut in rate of interest sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Cautious optimism during a time of growing financial uncertainty. John Hernandez, CBC News, New Westminster.
Well, Canada's inflation rate dipped again in October. Headline inflation, also known as the Consumer Price Index, came in at 3.1%. That's down from 3.8% in September. The slowdown was led by gasoline prices, which were down an average of 6% in October. Increases in grocery prices have slowed as well, but still came in at more than 5%. Housing costs, of course, remain a key factor in the high cost of living. Rents rose more than 8% in October. That's compared to 7% in September. And mortgage interest costs are up more than 30% compared to a year ago. Well, expensive housing and food prices, yes, continue to be top of mind, especially here in BC, where the affordability crunch is squeezing many. Our Mira Baines is finding out how people in this province are dealing with the continual high costs and a grim economic outlook.
As inflation drops further, housing and food prices continue to be a heavy burden, especially in BC, which has some of the highest housing costs in the country.
I've been trying really hard to go to the grocery store and make our own food. So we're doing that, and then hopefully we can save some money and have a 2-bedroom at some point. We're in a 1-bedroom right now with our baby. She lives in the closet.
This is my kind of first year living on my own finally, and getting used to all of that is crazy in of itself, right? So with the rising costs of everything, I find myself, it's sad to say, not eating as much.
We'd love to buy a house one day. That's not a feasible thing in our future, and I think even just going to the grocery store, we're having to be very selective about what grocery stores we go to, because some of them, you notice it when you get to the till, you just can't afford it.
Higher interest rates have worked to push the rate of inflation lower. It was down in October compared to September, but food prices are slow to budge. Inflation isn't expected to slow to a targeted 2% until 2025. Still, some economists are hopeful that Canada can avoid recession.
Well, I think we will evade an actual recession or a technical recession, meaning the economy doesn't outright shrink. But a lot of this is going to be a reflection of the fact that the population growth has been so strong.
The BC government says federal investment in affordable housing can't come fast enough and is looking for more details about $15 billion promised for rental housing loans.
All we know is that's $15 billion. Again, positive step, but we're going to have to get into a room with them and talk to them about making sure British Columbia gets our share.
Still, the overall Canadian economy is defined by weakness, and it will be months before people feel less pressure on their finances. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, charges have been laid in a deadly stabbing at a high school that happened a year ago. An 18-year-old was picking up his younger siblings from Manawas, a secondary school, when a fight broke out. During the altercation, a 17-year-old allegedly stabbed him, and he later died. The name of that suspect hasn't been released publicly because they were under 18 at the time. That suspect, though now 18 years old, has been charged with second-degree murder.
This was a tragic incident, and I can understand how for families this would be really hard for them. Mr. Sethi was a young man, 18 years old, just starting his life. He aspired to be in the army, to serve his country, and his life was taken far too early.
Homicide investigators say the two did know each other, though they didn't specify what kind of relationship they had. Investigators also assured the public this was an isolated case and there is no ongoing threat to the community. Well, to the island now. It wasn't the usual start to the day for some people in Victoria. This cougar was spotted near downtown around 5 in the morning, prompting Victoria police to warn people on loudspeakers to stay inside their homes. Victoria police say it appears to be a fully grown cougar. And just last hour, police say they made the difficult decision to shoot the animal after it was spotted a second time. They say the risk to public safety was simply too high. And we're just learning about a bear attack in Salmon Arm that happened around 11 o'clock this morning. A woman was running along a trail when she was knocked down by a bear. It bit her, shook her, then let go and left the area. That woman is now being treated for minor injuries. Conservation officers have responded, but the bear has not been seen since. Warnings have been put up, though, in the area. Residents of a mobile home park in Penticton have been asked to voluntarily leave because of the risk of a rock slide. A big rock that has the potential to break away leaves those living at the Pleasant Valley Mobile Home Park on Penticton Avenue at risk. 24 properties in total are affected by this advisory. Residents are asked to register at a nearby fire hall for more updates. City crews are working to assess the area and to eliminate that risk. Well, the 4th annual Indigenous Fashion Week is underway at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre tonight. The show started off last night with a red dress event held in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Throughout this week, 32 different Indigenous fashion designers will be featured, and up to 50 vendors will be present at an artisan market. Well, the doors are back open to seniors at a Vancouver mall, hoping to use that building for exercise. As our Michelle Gomez explains, with new rules, the city-owned mall is trying to turn a leaf with the community's elders.
We're here at the Chinatown Plaza Mall, where local seniors gather twice a week to practice Tai Chi. It's a Chinese martial art that involves slow and careful physical movement. Six months ago, the group was kicked out of the city-owned mall during one of its sessions. Organizers claimed mall staff attempted to physically stop the seniors' movements and made culturally insensitive comments. The City of Vancouver apologized at the time for the way the incident was handled. The group has since worked with the city to get permission to use the space and resumed their sessions in the mall a few weeks ago.
It's really important to find an indoor community space for the community members to activate. Seniors can actually come to practice those stretches, Tai Chi moves to, it benefits their physical condition, their health, and also it's a good opportunity for them to social with their, their new friend, meet new friends, and also, chat with their old friends. And because a lot of seniors, they are isolated seniors, living by themselves.
The bi-weekly meetups draw around 50 seniors between the ages of 70 and 96. For Betty, the exercise has improved her physical health, and it gives her a chance to get out and socialize.
It seems that it's been helping my health a lot, especially mental health as well. I'm a single mother, and so it's been a huge impact on my life. And since I've been coming here to work out, it really helps my well-being in general.
The City of Vancouver said use of the space is beneficial to both the community and retail shops in the plaza, and it intends to increase access for community events in the future. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Canucks fans got a big surprise last night when some royal, well-known faces dropped by to drop the puck.
We are thrilled to welcome Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, founder and patron of the Invictus Games Foundation.
Yes, Prince Harry dropped the ceremonial puck just before the Canucks game against the San Jose Sharks at Rogers Arena last night. He and Meghan Markle then joined Premier David Eby and some Indigenous leaders to watch the Canucks win 3-1. Harry has made several trips to Vancouver in the last several months in the lead up to the 2025 Invictus Games. The last royal to drop a puck at a Canucks game, by the way, was Harry's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, in 2002. And in other royal news, music royalty that is, the Rolling Stones have announced their upcoming 2024 North American tour, with Vancouver being the only Canadian stop. The band is rolling into BC Place on July 5th. Tickets go on sale December 1st. The rock and roll band last played in Vancouver in 2006. They were set to perform in May of 2020, but that show was canceled because of the pandemic. And let's bring in our Darius Madavian. Darius, I'm glad they're coming to BC right in the prime of their careers, I think.
Right in the prime. What could be a better time? Actually, my friend did see them not too long ago, just a couple of years ago in Toronto, and said it was one of the best concerts he's ever seen.
Hey, so. I don't doubt it. Maybe we can snag some tickets.
Yeah, maybe he'll come visit me out in Vancouver, just to go. But today, probably not the day you want to come, at least not for the next few hours while we have the system passing through. Still seeing some quite heavy rains here in Vancouver. Here you can see that system make its way further south. Again, it was up here and making its way down here, but we didn't pick it up on the radar because there's no coverage up there, but expect that system to have come down like so. So we are going to continue to see the rain for a couple hours yet, but then we should ease off overnight. And then we got a pretty major dry stretch ahead. So if we take a look here, you can see that precipitation forecast, just a little bit of rain still coming for the most southern parts of the south coast. We have the system passing through along the BC-Alberta border, bringing some snow over the next 24 hours or so, but really not too much to speak of. In terms of temperatures, we are cooling off in the south a little bit, except here on the coast we stay around the same, just dropping a degree or two. And then if we take a look here in Vancouver overnight tonight, we're not seeing anything too much. Those rains start to cool off, and then by the time we reach around to midnight, they've gone completely, and then we see temperatures stick around pretty consistently until morning. So not looking too chilly tonight, and then we see tomorrow morning pretty much just around seasonal, and we see the sun poking out through the clouds once again for what will be a pretty sunny afternoon.
We'll take it. We'll chat with you again towards the end of the show. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Tanya.
International students attending classes in Canada used to face restrictions on the number of hours they could work off campus. Well, last year, the federal government lifted the 20-hour limit, but that pilot policy is coming to an end this year. As Pretush Dayal reports, now students who are being hit hard by the country's cost of living crisis are calling to have those restrictions removed permanently.
The past year could have been more financially stressful for Krunal Chavra. The University of Saskatchewan international student has about $40,000 in student loans. He paid off $10,000 with full-time work, but says he's feeling inflationary pressure. Chavra wants to see the federal pilot policy that didn't cap off-campus work at 20 hours per week made permanent.
I have found myself in situations like that where I was like, okay, should I buy this or should I not? It's basically put down to necessities and not like the wants.
Other international students agree.
I feel it's becoming more and more difficult to sustain.
Not every grocery store are always on sale, having the products on sale. So sometimes some healthier options might be a bit too expensive. Sometimes you just have to pick the ones that you can avoid versus the ones that you really need.
The rising cost of living is pushing many to rely on food banks. A report from October shows national food bank use is at its highest level since 1989.
A lot of them are reporting that over 50% are international students that are using those food banks. So it's a very dire situation that speaks to the discrepancy and the huge gap between what life is like for an international student in this country versus the average Canadian or even the average student.
We're calling on Prime Minister Trudeau and Immigration Minister Mark Miller to do the right thing. Otherwise, they will be letting employer abuse, rampant wage theft, mistreatment and work, and general stress continue.
International students in Canada that spoke to CBC say they want the same. The Federal Immigration Department says it's assessing the impact of the policy and says the temporary lift on the limit is helping address Canada's labour shortage. While uncertainty looms, some students are already looking for on-campus jobs.
So that we don't have that impact on our mental health, that we are always worrying about money, and that we need to always be concerned about if we will have enough money for next year.
With thousands of students to be impacted, advocates say the government needs to act now. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, still ahead, dozens of former Airbnbs have gone on the market since BC slapped restrictions on short-term rentals, but they're not selling. We'll explore why with a real estate broker coming up next. And thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Well, Nanaimo is bringing back its Public Safety Committee. The city used to have one, but it was disbanded 5 years ago. Now, with public safety front and center, a new one is being created. As Claire Palmer explains, it's meant to be a place for residents to voice their safety concerns.
Nanaimo had a public safety committee until 2018 when it was dissolved. Now, the city says making residents feel safe is a top priority, so it's forming a new one and looking for volunteers to help staff it.
I think the safety committee needs to be squarely focused at making sure that they're holding the provincial and federal government accountable for what the province and federal government say that they can do.
It will be made up of 2 town councillors and 7 citizens. They'll be tasked with looking at safety through a wide lens, from neighborhoods and businesses to mischief and graffiti. Mayor Leonard Krogh says there are genuine issues that need to be addressed and new concerns that arise quickly. Everyone from families at home to our vulnerable and unhoused population need to feel safe. Public safety has been a growing concern here in recent years, and the city's move is sitting well with people we spoke with.
It is good news, and I'm just hoping that something will come of it, that it won't be just a lot of talk and a lot of investigating and then nothing done.
I think it's a good initiative. Hopefully they actually listen to the feedback they're getting
and come up with some possibilities of addressing some of the issues that are raised.
Well, I think it's good. I think everything's good that they bring back. I think that more public input is needed.
The committee will put forward recommendations to council on community safety concerns.
I hope that this kind of committee can kind of reignite or strengthen the community conversation around what it means to have a safe city.
Committee members will work with RCMP, bylaw officers, and emergency responders, as well as the public. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Last month, the BC government announced new regulations to crack down on short-term rentals like Airbnbs, including higher fines for hosts who break bylaws and a ban on short-term rentals that are not part of the owner's principal residence. Well, Victoria real estate broker Dustin Miller says the stricter rules have forced dozens of Airbnbs to go up for sale, but few of them have actually sold. So he joins us now to talk more about this. Thank you, and we'll get right to it. So walk us through what you see as the direct cause and effect here.
Well, it's directly linked to Bill 35, the Short-Term Accommodation Act, which was announced October 16th and has since been formalized, obtained royal assent. I haven't been seeing these units selling. And why aren't they selling? Well, because they're priced at quite a bit of a premium. And buyers today are having a hard time justifying that premium now that that Airbnb revenue stream is gone.
Let's talk about how you came to this conclusion. I understand you keep a list of buildings holding legal non-conforming status, those that were grandfathered in before 2018 when Victoria banned people from renting their secondary units on Airbnb. So how many units with this status have been listed in the weeks since those stricter rules were just announced?
So since the October 16th announcement, there's been 55 units that have been listed for sale in downtown Victoria. Only 2 of them have sold. And both of those units were about 360 square feet, small studio units, and they sold for about $350,000.
So that number of units going up for sale, I mean, how much of an increase is that compared to previous years? And what does that say about the housing market for sellers in general?
Well, I did see a sharp increase in listings even prior to this October 16th announcement. I guess some owners were anticipating big changes. I personally saw this come out first with the Homes for People plan that was announced back in April of this year. As of today, there's 76 active listings for legal non-conforming buildings in downtown Victoria. The past 3 to 4 years, I'd say we'd only typically see around 5 or less of these listings at any given time.
So, I mean, broadly speaking, the province's goal with this, they say, was to put more affordable homes on the market for people who live here, essentially. So they hoped they would have a desired effect. Were you surprised to see that many listings, Airbnb listings, go up for sale, I guess, this quickly after that announcement, given it won't be enforced essentially until the spring?
Yes, I agree with the spirit and the intent of the legislation, which is has a goal of making homes available either to rent or to purchase. But at the same time, I'm also have a bit of a concern about the overnight loss of property rights and the change to the long-standing legal application of grandfathering in this province, which is concerning. But so far, I haven't seen this benefit any first-time homebuyers or young professionals looking to get onto the property ladder. The units are simply priced way too high, whether it's for sale or for rent, and many of them are just undesirable as long-term rentals. A 400 square foot micro unit isn't super appealing to most people.
And I just want to touch on briefly as well as we end here, we should mention that today, as we heard off the top of the show, the federal government also announced plans to tighten up tax rules for short-term rentals. Do you think that will further impact Airbnb sales, or I guess lack of sales?
Yeah, this new CRA federal government announcement is targeting units that are prohibited by legislation. All these downtown Victoria condo units are currently legal, and they will be until May 1st of next year. I do think this will have an impact more immediately on, say, municipalities like Esquimalt, Saanich, North Saanich that don't have a licensing system and don't have clear rules surrounding Airbnb use. So I think we could see an increase in listings in the surrounding municipalities that don't have the legal structure that City of Victoria does.
Thank you for your insights on this, Dustin.
Yeah, you're welcome, Tanya.
That's real estate broker Dustin Miller joining us tonight. After the break, why hundreds of thousands of public sector workers have walked off the job in Quebec. We'll have more on that straight ahead.
Strong words for a woman Lucy Latino is meeting for the first time.
I can't believe, and I've said this before, there's angels in heaven. I'm lucky, mine walks on earth.
She's talking about Claire Juracek, who today is donating her kidney to save Latino's life.
It's been extremely hard. I've gone through a lot in 3 years. But I always say, I'm a warrior.
Latino's kidneys started to fail 3 years ago.
When I first got my line in,
Dialysis helps keep her alive. Here she is with her daughter Danielle getting her final treatment last night.
There's such a need for organ donors.
Latino's daughter played a huge role in finding a living donor. She launched a campaign called Lucy Needs a Kidney. They searched online and at times in person.
I need a kidney too.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm on dialysis.
This is Latino's husband Charlie last year at Yonge Dundas Square.
And I tell him, you do whatever you can do.
All of that work finally paid off.
I always known that I wanted to be an organ donor.
In 2022, Juracek, who frequently donates blood and posts about it online, got a reaction.
So she had simply gone and cheered my story, like just given it like a clap emoji because Blood Services had reshared it and she saw it. Right. And then of course the Instagram account is called Lucy Needs a Kidney. So as soon as I saw the cheer and I took a look at their account, I just messaged her back and I said, hey, I'm the right blood type for your mom. Like, why don't I get the paperwork and start seeing if I'm a match?
The odds of Lucy finding a living donor match were long. According to Trillium Gift of Life Network, there are nearly 1,200 Ontarians waiting for an organ, most in need of a kidney. She's also in the longest queue line regarding blood type.
It's more tricky to find the exact match, so the O blood type recipients cannot take any other blood types. It's amazing that people are doing this, donating organs for other people. It's really the core of being human and trying to save other people's life.
And that is the core of Claire and the Latinos' relationship going forward.
My mom getting her transplant is not the end of Lucy Needs a Kidney and my work in this organ donation advocacy space. I imagine that might be something Claire wants to do too. And I think together we can really raise some good awareness and get people to consider living donation.
As for Lucy Latino, once recovered,
I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the view.
And then?
And then I would like to go to Italy because I've never been.
Dale Manukdak, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Let's take you out east now. And demonstrations swept across Quebec today. More than 400,000 teachers and other public sector workers walked off the job for a 3-day strike. As Melissa Francoise explains, it will impact the province's health, education, and social services. We seem to have some technical difficulties with that piece. Let's take you to India now. Rescue workers in the northern part of the country are making progress as they try to reach 41 workers trapped in a tunnel. 10 days ago, that highway tunnel they were working on collapsed, and they've been stuck underground ever since. The CBC's Aaron Collins has the latest on those rescue efforts.
A glimpse inside a crisis still unfolding deep underground. These images the first to emerge since this ordeal began. 41 men trapped more than a week since the tunnel they were working on collapsed. Well, that cave-in happened here, high up in the Indian Himalayas, the mountainous area a challenge for rescue crews. The hope to push a pipe through the debris to allow the men to escape. Those efforts slowed due to challenges drilling through the rock. But a breakthrough could be getting closer.
We're going to get those men out. What I've seen, seriously, what I've seen, there are great works being done. This is going to happen, and look, we're on it, and that's what we're here. And there's a whole team of us here, and we're going to find the solution, and we're going to get them out.
Officials say the workers are safe and have access to water and oxygen sent in via pipe. Food is being provided for them as well. Still, enduring so many days underground, no easy task.
There has to be a lot of distress. Now the symptoms could be in the form of anxiety, palpitation, serious negative thinking, and extreme cases you can have, death wish also.
As rescue efforts drag on, doctors have encouraged the trapped men to do yoga and meditate to pass the time. Indian officials have yet to say what caused the cave-in, but the area is prone to mudslides, earthquakes, and floods. And whatever caused the collapse, these men hope to soon see the light at the end of this tunnel. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
Well, coming up, she played a big part in helping Team Canada climb to the top of the women's tennis world. We hear from Vancouver tennis sensation Rebecca Marino after the break. Stay with us.
This isn't just a bottle. There's a story behind it. There's a story of bravery and resilience and heroism. What makes it special is there's very few wineries left that follow traditional methods. So these are champagne methods. It's double fermentation in the bottle. You have to age it for years, and it involves the art of hand riddling. In Ukraine, the winemakers, the women that do this are, it's passed on from grandmother to granddaughter. So it's just, imagine if I took you to this place that is 75 meters underground, 26 hectares, caverns, a tasting room that feels like you're at Merlin's table, sculptures in the walls, and millions of bottles in riddling racks. It's just incredible. When Ukraine was invaded, the winery is literally in the east of Ukraine, and they started evacuating their people, and they started evacuating some wine, and then the city was fully occupied by Russian forces, and this winery was overtaken as a base for Wagner.
The first thing that goes through your mind is all the people, because I've been to the winery like a half a dozen times, and admittedly it's been a long time, but you just start thinking about all those people that work there, that created all this beautiful art, that painted these paintings and made these sculptures, that are working there every day, making this incredible stuff that we get to enjoy, and what's going to happen to them, and what's their life like. Their house is flattened, their home is destroyed, their place of work is annihilated, and so what are they doing? It's just the thoughts of all of that just being wiped out You know, it's such an amazing place. I've been to the great champagne houses in France, and this impressed me even more.
We actually tried to get product out last year, we couldn't. And then they called us and said, we managed to get some trucks out. And I asked them to please, please, please give us a limited quantity for Canada, for the LCBO. And today is the day.
Every single time opening up one of those bottles will be one of those feelings of really, really special. And also just a little bit of a hope and prayer that they can just create this beautiful stuff one more time, and that all those people that love it so much can come home, rebuild their homes, rebuild their place of work, rebuild their business, and do this again.
Welcome back. Vancouver tennis star Rebecca Marino joined the early edition host Stephen Quinn this morning to discuss Team Canada's recent Billie Jean King Cup victory in Spain. She also talks about how far she's come personally and the effort she's putting in to qualify for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Take a listen.
You pulled that trophy out of a velvet bag and put it in front of me, and the shine of it just threw me there. Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, it's such an exciting thing.
What does that feel like? You're walking around with this.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's incredible. I can say I'm a world champion, and I'm carrying around the World Cup in that velvet bag that you mentioned.
It's unbelievable. How did you celebrate the win with the rest of the team?
Well, we definitely went out for a nice dinner and a sort of moment with the team and all the staff and everyone who made it possible for us. We did that immediately after when we were still in Seville. Mm-hmm. And then I went over to New Brunswick and celebrated with my Maritime family, and now I'm celebrating with my West Coast family.
Oh, fantastic. Now, for people who may not know, how does team tennis work exactly? You think of tennis as a sort of individual sport. How is it scored? How are you ranked as a team? And how do you win as a team?
Yeah, this is pretty unique because, like you said, the majority of the time during the year, it is an individual sport. I compete for myself the bulk of the time. But once a year, we do have this World Cup of Tennis, the Billie Jean King Cup. And your national association will select certain players, so you have to be nominated and accept the invitation. And there's usually 4 or 5 players that are invited. And then we go head-to-head against other nations, the best in the world. So our ranking every year changes. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we were ranked very high going in because we had to go through qualifiers earlier this year, right, which was held actually in Vancouver. But now I think we're actually ranked number 1.
It's unbelievable what you've managed to accomplish. I mean, a lot of the women on your team are I guess, fairly unknown. I mean, they're not super common names. There's Leila Fernandez, of course, who's a top-ranked player at 35th. But what was it about this team that made them so unbeatable?
Well, I think we're really proud to represent Canada on a national stage like this. We were talking about it the whole time, how it's so amazing and incredible to play for something that's greater than just yourself. And also to come together as a team instead of just an individual for that one special time of year. So I feel like because we're such a cohesive unit with such a similar mindset, it really pushed us to achieve greater things. And it was really inspiring watching my teammates compete, and to win the cup together as a unit was really incredible.
That's got to be so great because, I mean, most of the time it's just you and fighting yourself, or you have yourself only to rely on when you're out there on the court, and having the support of a team must be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it makes it so special, because it's that one time a year you can be part of many different people into one team. A
lot of the women let me back up. You actually took a break in tennis in 2013.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Why did you step away from the game?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really manage my schedule very well at the time. I kind of burnt myself out in a way, and that affected my mental health. And so at the time I decided, you know, in order for me to feel happy and healthy, the best thing would be to step away from tennis. I didn't even think I'd actually return to the sport until 2017 I decided, but I first competed in 2018. And so being able to get back into the top 100 in the singles ranking, and then now to be a World Cup champ, you know, I don't think I would have fathomed this during that time off. So I'm incredibly proud of how far personally I've come, but you know, the people who helped get me there as well. This tennis community in Vancouver specifically has really fostered my growth and development mentally, emotionally. And so I'm really proud of all the people who got me there.
The Canadian men's team also claimed their very first Davis Cup, the men's equivalent. How big is Canadian tennis right now?
Seems like it hasn't been better. I mean, it's really incredible. I think when the men won the Davis Cup last year, the women were left with the feeling like, we can do that. Yeah. So it really motivated us this year as well to win. So there's actually a 2-week overlap. The men are actually competing today, if anyone's interested, in their Davis Cup. But there was a 2-week overlap where you have 2 world champions in tennis for the first time ever. So that's really amazing. And then we have, you know, a plethora of players on the men's side. And then we have a lot of depth on the women's side as well right now. So I think it'll foster a lot of development for the future, like the young ones watching right now.
What is it like to be walking around with that silverware?
It's heavy.
How heavy is it?
Yeah, you'll have to pick it up after, but it's you know, you have to have some muscle to it.
Oh my gosh.
And this is just the mini version. I'm hoping that, I know they did a tour of the men's Davis Cup last year across Canada. I'm hoping we can do that with the Billie Jean King Cup.
That would be
this year across Canada, so you can see the big thing. But they were really kind and gave us all our own individual mini versions.
Isn't
so it's pretty heavy. And then we also got these blue jackets.
I saw.
Sort of like how in the men's golf at the Masters they have the green jackets. We have the Billy Blue
they're beautiful.
World Champ jackets. So it's nice to have sort of the memorabilia to go with the incredible moment.
You are hoping to qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah.
What needs to happen for that to be the case?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's something that I've dreamed of since I was a kid, so it's never off the table in that sense. I went to compete in Pan Am Games down in Santiago, Chile, and there was an Olympic qualifier spot open there. And I lost in the semifinals. I needed to make the finals, so I just missed that. The next step would be I need to be basically top 70 in the singles rankings. And right now I'm ranked around 170. I just took a little bit of a hit in my ranking, but I know I can get back there. I was there last year. It just takes a lot of work, and you know, I have a lot of self-belief, at least, that if I push myself, I can do it. But, you know, just have to get there.
I can't imagine the amount of work it takes.
Yeah, it's definitely 24/7. I don't have any other job than tennis, but I feel really fortunate in that sense that it's what I get to do every day.
Let's take you to Iceland now, where fears of an impending volcanic eruption have people in a small town there clearing out their belongings. And construction crews are hustling to build barriers to divert potential lava flows. Truckloads of gravel are being dumped around a nearby geothermal energy plant. It provides power to much of the area, about 40 kilometers southwest of Reykjavik. Officials are warning there may be less than 30 minutes warning before an eruption. The area has been largely empty for the past 2 weeks. Residents and business owners have been getting limited access to go in and collect their valuables. And let's bring back our Darius Madavian. Darius, sounds like redirecting magma, not the easiest task in the world.
Yes, I do wonder what they're building these things out of. It seems like quite the task, but it is well needed because, as you can see here, we are still seeing quite a number of earthquakes, especially along that fault where we've seen that magma come close to the surface, but we are seeing the number of earthquakes decrease. So last week we talked about how, compared to the previous weekend, we were seeing thousands, then last week we were only seeing hundreds, and now we're down to just dozens. We saw around 70 earthquakes in the last 24 hours or so, most of them below a magnitude 2, so not something you'd feel, but very important for tracking the flow of the magma. And as you can see, it's come very close to the surface, because the less activity you see, the more likely the closer to the surface it will be. And so authorities are saying they're only going to have less than 30 minutes to warn people when that magma does come to the surface. So we're just hoping that it does not come close to the town that's been evacuated or that geothermal plant. Now, I also want to turn to here on the east coast of Canada before we turn all the way back to here in BC, because we do have some warnings in place that are quite significant as we have a storm rolling through the United States during what is just the lead up to Thanksgiving weekend. We have a special weather statement in place for strong, heavy rain, in Nova Scotia, as well as a freezing rain warning and a weather statement for snowfall in Ontario as well. You can see that system starting to roll up here over the last 72 hours now, reaching New York City. And if we take a look, you can see considerable accumulation already over the last 24 hours throughout parts of the U.S., where we've seen around 8 reports of tornadoes as well, and then continuing up through the rest of into the Maritimes as well. So some significant rainfall there. If we look here in BC, most of our rainfall now over the next couple hours moving out of the south coast, and then we're drying up for the most part, except for, again, a bit of snowfall in the east and some more rains coming to the west coast, but really just scattered. And then if we take a look across the province for tomorrow, you can see just that little bit of remaining moisture here as that system passes through, and then we do start to see some sunshine across most of BC. And here in Vancouver, it's the same story. After we see that rainfall end over the next couple hours, we see nothing but sunny skies ahead in what seems like an unusual forecast for a Vancouver fall, but remains to be seen exactly how long it sticks around for.
I was going to say November in Vancouver. We will take all that sunshine. Thank you very much, Darius.
Thanks, Tanya.
Wildfire season in Alberta is officially over, but that doesn't mean all of the fires have actually been put out. As Julia Wong shows us, crews there are keeping a close eye on what's happening beneath the ground.
It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Searching for fire is far from glamorous work, but that's the point of cold trailing, looking to see if fire is still smoldering underground.
Just to ensure that there's no actual hot spots remaining, because even a single ember can restart a forest fire.
Temperatures may be dropping, but fire can still burn deep in peat.
It'll sit there and it'll smolder very slowly through the entire winter. It might move 6 inches in a month, could move 100 meters.
Wildfire burns through the peat here in the spring, but peat fires can be hard to detect in the winter, especially once there's snow. Crews have to monitor, looking for flames or smoke, and they rely a lot on calls from the public. This is what they can look like. These persistent fires, also called holdover fires or so-called zombie fires because they can spring back to life, can be a big problem. How concerning are holdover fires?
They're definitely concerning in that they're very hard to predict. And certainly
drought conditions and possibly a warm spring could spell trouble.
That we may have quite conducive fire weather next year in 2024 right off the bat, which would be again a concern for these holdover fires. So generally, the contribution that they make individually to total area burned is actually quite small, but in really severe years, it can be substantial.
So this space right here, this used to be peat.
Yes,
but
that was all peat.
Burned away.
Yeah, you can see this branch here is black and burnt.
It isn't easy though. To put out a fire, the soil has to be exposed to air, then flooded with water.
If we don't deal with them now, we're not sure what we could see in the spring.
So even though it isn't pretty, this dirty work will hopefully go a long way to prevent any fires from springing back to life. Julia Wong, CBC News, Wildwood, Alberta.
Let's go back to that story from Quebec now, and demonstrations swept across the province today. More than 400,000 teachers and other public sector workers walked off the job for a 3-day strike. And as Melissa Francois explains, it'll impact the province's health, education, and social services.
Dozens of workers blocked the street in front of the CHUM hospital.
We're asking for the government to listen to us, to listen to what we have to propose.
They feel more united than ever.
Well, it really shows that everyone is mobilized and people are dissatisfied with their conditions and they want more. It can't be a status quo negotiation.
They are part of the common front of public sector employees demanding better salaries and working conditions.
We also want, maybe some more time off vacation, because also people have been working and it's been difficult even, during the pandemic.
The 3-day strike touches 420,000 social services, healthcare, and education workers across the province. Here in Quebec City, they say they've been negotiating for too long.
It's been a year. It's time to negotiate properly. I think we've cut our demands down, and they're not respecting what we've put on the table.
Premier François Legault said to meet workers' demands,
les demandes syndicales exigeraient qu'on ajoute des milliards de dollars. Donc.
His government would have to put billions more on the table. Treasury Board President Sonia Lebel says her focus is how the work is organized.
I mean, we have to convince people to come help during the weekend, at nights, in emergencies, to make sure that we have a workforce. That's the way we are approaching things.
Education Minister Bernard Drinville says he wants to create more permanent positions and add 4,000 teachers' assistants. In the healthcare network, essential services are maintained, but the strike is already having an impact.
We have a lot of empathy for the patient right now because we already are exiting from a difficult period of the COVID, and this is a very difficult timing for the network.
And it's only day one. Mélissa François, CBC News, Montreal.
Up next, the search for Philip and an all-inclusive trip once again on offer. The Arizona Price is Right contestant who missed out on a trip to New West will be heading here after all. We'll explain why after the break.
Representing Austria,
Manuel
Welcome back. Remember the Price is Right contestant who missed out on that trip to New Westminster? Well, he's still coming to visit anyway. Philip Fitzpatrick went viral last week when he overestimated how much a trip to New West would cost by $3,000. Well, Tourism New Westminster heard about it and they launched a campaign to find Philip with the hashtag #SearchForPhilip. Ultimately, Philip was found in Arizona. The city offered him an all-inclusive vacation, and at first, he says he was rather skeptical.
I grew up in the era of a prince in Ethiopia wants to send you money. And so I was very skeptical, and so I did some research, and a couple of friends of mine helped me with the research to make sure this was a real thing. And then once I found out it was, I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen here?
Fitzpatrick will arrive in New West in early December. He plans to meet the mayor for lunch and the police department for donuts. And thank you for joining us this evening. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download our free CBC News app. You can always find us online as well. We're at cbc.ca/BC. I'll be back with your next local news at 11 o'clock tonight, right after the National. Good night.